Rely on. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to pass this bill now.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM, Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide this month titled The Top Year-End Planning Tips. Mike, if someone is considering a Roth IRA conversion, what are some of the things they need to be aware of?
Well, first thing first is that it has to be done by December 31st. This is not one of those that you have until your tax filing deadlines are due. There also used to be this makeup provision where you could recharacterize things. That's since gone away. And so if you're looking at a year-end type thing like a conversion, then that's definitely a December 31st deadline.
Another one that's time sensitive, if you have a required minimum distribution, got to have that done by the end of the year as well. What considerations are present there?
You do, and the rules have changed so much over the last few years here that I think people might still be operating off of old information. You know, it used to be 70.5, has been continued to be bumped up for 72 to 73, for some folks even age 75. And so my feeling is whether you're subject to a required minimum distribution at this stage or not, you should at least be understanding how they work if you are approaching retirement. And this guide goes through a number of year-end tips, but specifically a bunch of them that have to be completed by year-end, and required minimum distributions, with very few exceptions, is one of those items that you need to get done by year-end 12/31, or else face some pretty stiff penalties. But like I said, those rules have all changed over the last few years.
The guide this month is titled The Top Year-End Financial Tips and includes discussions of these items and a whole bunch more. How do you request the guide? Call 800-393-4001. Again, the guide is titled The Top Year-End Financial Tips, and it's available by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
The Financial Exchange and Veterans Development Corporation are proud partners of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for single veterans and for those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit davma.org. That's davma.org.
Securing your family's financial future is one of the most important elements of estate planning. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide is called Making the Most of Gifting Assets. It seems like an easy decision to simply leave everything to your children, but some gifts can cause major complications. Call 866-848-5699 and request your guide today. It'll help you understand the pros and cons of leaving assets to your children. Gifting can be beneficial. However, if the gift is a significant asset, like your primary home, and your kids suddenly decide to sell it, that gift could create massive capital gains tax problems. Whether you're deep into the planning process or just starting out, this new guide contains the information you'll need to make the right decisions for your overall plan. Get your guide today by calling 866-848-5699 or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
As a busy mom, my to-do list is full.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
Visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting DAV5K.Boston and making a donation today. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Marc Fandetti.
Good morning, happy election day, and welcome to the Financial Exchange. We open up with markets strongly in positive territory. It's Mike Armstrong, Marc Fandetti, and Tucker Silva with you this Tuesday morning, and it is apparent, to me at least, that Tucker's got it out for both Mark and me as he came up with a stack almost entirely about presidential election politics this morning, so we cannot wait to dive right in. It's also the only thing that really...
Is it his mustachioed evil twin?
Yeah, it might be. It might be. Yeah, it's tough.
Or is that Tom Selleck back there?
It is
he
tough
pulls it off.
to tell,
He
quite
pulls
honestly.
it off.
Yeah.
I was Mario, like a total idiot with that.
I was Mario for Halloween, and I might keep it. Not going to lie.
Totally works. Yeah, it works.
Yeah, wife's super into firefighters, so this works out well. So starting out the show here, we're going to talk a lot about economic policy and what, campaign pledges that have been out there. But I wanted to start out with how I'm reading polls and betting markets, and I'm sure how I'm reading is imperfect and different than other people. But taking a look at the stories out there, this is obviously, by all accounts and by all experts, an incredibly close race, closer than many others according to the polling data. According to 538, what I like about their system, and we can talk about different models, but they average a whole bunch of polls and try and favor the ones that have historically been more accurate and less biased than others, and they run simulations based on that polling data and basically consider it a coin toss. Out of 1,000 simulations, they've got Harris winning 503 of them, Trump winning 495. This has nothing to do with the popular vote. They're running simulations in the Electoral College. That is a toss-up, folks. So according to the polling data, things look awfully close. That does not translate to the election will be close, right? You have to understand that just because polling data comes out one way could still mean that they're within the margin of error and every swing state goes towards Donald Trump or the other direction. And a week ago, Nate Silver said as much, that, hey, the chances of a Donald Trump sweep in the swing states is sitting around 20% compared to Harris's 12%. So that is an entire possibility. I will also say about polls, I'm not somebody who looks at how polls are engineered, but others do. And again, to quote Nate Silver here, he has kind of come out and made some allegations against some of the pollsters, basically that they are tipping the scales, and not so much tipping the scales because they want to tip the vote of the election per se, but because, in his opinion, a lot of them are terrified about being wrong a third presidential election in a row. And if you are that wrong a third election in a row, then you might not be relied upon heavily. And so he points out that it's almost statistically impossible for this many polls to be showing basically a 50-50 split in all these swing states. Your numbers aren't all, quote from Nate Silver, your numbers aren't all going to come out at exactly 1 point leads when you're sampling 800 people over dozens of surveys. He's been lashing out about this for a few weeks, but effectively what he accuses some pollsters of doing is hurting their numbers, making them look like previous elections, and dumping results that favor one candidate too much over another. And so my point would be, I'm not sure how reliable a lot of these polls are, because they're all just trying to model something based on how previous elections went, which may or may not be how this one goes. You had something to add there, Mark.
There are two basic statistical issues in play here, and they apply to
all sorts of other statistics
like
that we run.
The economic data that we talk about. We always say that last month 12,000 jobs were created. That is a sample. That number comes from a survey, which is itself a sample. The actual number is 12,000 plus or minus 130,000. That's not statistically different than zero. When the plus or minus, the estimate includes zero, that means it could be zero. So you may be asking, why is it so hard to get an accurate poll? And the answer is because it's very hard to keep all else equal. When you're taking a random sample of voters, you try to ensure that they share no common characteristic disproportionately relative to the population. For example, you wouldn't ask a bunch of people at, my church, St. Mary's in Rentham, how do you feel about abortion? Well, these are Catholics. Of course, 80% of the parishioners are going to be opposed to abortion. That is not a random sample. In 1936, they asked, who do you like, Alf Landon or FDR? Who did they ask? People with telephones. Who had telephone? What did they not control for? Wealth, income, because only rich people had telephones. They predicted, Reader's Digest did, Alf Landon by a landslide. That
Turned out
biased,
not so much.
It was a biased sample. That's the textbook example of bad polling, of failure to control for factors that could bias your estimate. And that's why it's so difficult to get a statistically significant and representative result from a poll like this. And the second point is herding, but I'll stop there because herding's another interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, herding, again, just very simply not wanting to be an outlier because this is your job. And if you're an outlier and you're wrong, then everyone's going to look at you and say you're bad at your job. And so there are some accusations of herding out there as well.
So how does Silver know that they're herding? Because by random chance alone, some should say 47%, some should say 51%. That's just randomness. If you're all at 49 to 50, that's much tighter distribution than random chance
And he doesn't
suggest.
present evidence other than statistically this is close to zero possibility of it happening.
If I said I flipped 10 heads in a row, you'd be suspicious. You didn't see my process. You don't know the coin is loaded, but you'd say that's different than the outcome suggested by random chance. So you could say, without even knowing anything about the process, these polls are suspicious. They're too concentrated on the same estimate.
So I'm not saying throw it out, but don't necessarily expect an incredibly close race that we don't call until Thursday. Taking a look at betting markets, that's been a discussion point a lot during this cycle and for the last several cycles. I'm looking at predictit.org, just one of many betting markets on presidential elections, and they have a Republican or Donald Trump as the presidential winner somewhere in the 58 to 59% possibility range. I don't know if that's any better than any other, but clearly in favor pretty significantly of Trump. I would also say that gambling markets typically are dominated by men. Men are voting more heavily towards Donald Trump. Is that influencing the betting markets in some way, shape, or form? Entirely possible. I don't know how much to rely on that either.
So this is another example of a non-random, potentially sample. People who have the money to bet, people who are inclined to gamble, are going online and making bets. Is that a random sample of voters? No, they're wealthier and they're more inclined to gamble, which means they're skewed toward men. These people will be more pro-Trump. They're involved in financial markets, prediction markets in this case, and they're on balance men. You got to ask yourself when you see a poll, should I believe that the sample was random? Is there anything about it that might bias the result? This is a huge problem in economics and finance generally, and it's a good way to make what is otherwise an arcane, I think, subject accessible to everybody, because we all get why going into a church and asking people their views on abortion will give you a biased result. Clearly that sample is random, and that's the problem that pollsters run into, Mike.
One final point on, different data points coming in here in terms of early voting. According to some tracking by NBC, of the more than 58 million mail-in and early in-person votes that have been cast nationally, so far 54% cast by women, 44% cast by men. In the swing states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, there's at least a 10-point gap between men and women in early vote. I'll also say this is pretty typical, but does it mean something different in this cycle than it did in previous ones? I just genuinely don't know, and we will have to wait to find out. But again, as I take a look at the data, I still consider this to be highly unpredictable and tough to know, as every presidential election is, right? I think just a little bit of humility from everybody here that looks at this professionally is appreciated, because ultimately nobody knows how those ballots are going to cast, whether women will swing the vote, whether women will split a ticket, for instance, on an abortion issue versus a presidential issue. Nobody knows, and hopefully we will know sometime very late tonight or tomorrow.
That's the great thing. Unlike the economic data that we talk about every day almost here, where we never really know what the real rate of unemployment is, despite the confidence with which we talk about the state of the economy. These are all just estimates. We're going to know.
This one will know.
There you go.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about the number one issue on all voters' minds, the economy. That's next here on the Financial Exchange.
Wall Street Watch, a full update on the market's performance to date. Weekdays at 10:30, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Your business tip of the day is brought to you by SAB Solutions Incorporated, serving businesses with real-time inventory management. Visit them online at sabsolutionsma.com. Here's General Sales Manager Toby Burrell.
One of the most exciting parts of my job is to evaluate a company's needs. We do a comprehensive analysis before we offer a specific plan. Recently, we were contacted by a billion-dollar global electrical contractor who had an urgent tracking issue that was affecting both incoming and outgoing products. We implemented a cloud-based stockroom tracking application that included mobile computers and that allowed the company's management's visibility into all available materials for their respective requirements. This solution was so successful that we have provided it to additional clients.
Let SAB Solutions be your trusted advisor when it comes to managing your inventory. Clients have relied on their expertise for more than 15 years, and they can help you too. Visit sabsolutionsma.com for more information. That's sabsolutionsma.com. Legacy planning is incredibly important. Cushing & Dolan's new guide is called Making the Most of Gifting Assets. In it, you'll learn that some gifts to your children can be problematic, especially if there are financial difficulties or a divorce proceeding. Get your guide today by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or request the guide online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
The Financial Exchange and Veterans Development Corporation are proud partners of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for single veterans and for those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit davma.org. That's davma.org.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Fine-tuning your financial strategy as the year comes to a close is very important. So this month, we're sharing what we believe are the most critical year-end financial tips. As 2024 winds down, there are several opportunities for you to consider that may help you end this year without worrying about your overall planning strategy, such as contributing the maximum amount of money to your IRA or 401k plan, offsetting your capital gains, and maximizing your charitable giving. We'll walk you through these issues features, and more in our new free guide called the Top Year-End Financial Tips. Get yours today by calling 800-393-4001. Again, it's the top year-end planning tips from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and you can request it by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
The ultimate Boston sports option to benefit the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts is underway. You could win 2 tickets to see the Patriots take on the LA Rams on November 17th, 2 tickets to see the world champion Celtics against the Cleveland Cavaliers on Tuesday, November 19th, 2 tickets to see the Bruins against the Edmonton Oilers on Tuesday, January 7th, and 4 tickets to a 2025 Red Sox home game. All that plus autographed merch from all 4 teams. To place your bid, call 888-205-2263. That's 888-205-2263.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. With fall in full swing, now's the time to start looking at a fabulous holiday vacation, and there's no better place than the U.S. Virgin Islands. Enjoy perfect weather, world-class dining, incredible beaches, and a vibrant nightlife. No passport is needed, and there's no money to exchange. Take your next vacation in America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Go to visitusvi.com to book your trip. That's visitusvi.com.
Mark, yesterday, Chuck and I on the program had a very cynical debate about whether or not the election matters for the economy. He was of the opinion that the Fed's next meeting was more important than the presidential election, and I disagreed with him. But nonetheless, here we are still talking to each other.
For the economy in the long term, short term?
That's the thing, is you just have a tough time.
It was a great discussion, but that's a question I had.
Yeah, it's very difficult to define these things. I would like to instead talk about where this election probably does matter for the economy and where it seemingly doesn't.
How about does the election matter for the Fed? We got one candidate who says, I want to say in interest rates. We got another candidate who says, I respect the Fed's hard-won independence. How does that affect long-term economic stability and growth? I have an opinion that economists have come to conclusions about that.
Yeah, the economists' conclusions is that Fed independence is incredibly important.
Thank you.
So another one of those questions about Donald Trump's campaigning pledges that you have to ask yourself: is he serious about this one, or is he just using it to buy votes and to convince people of his side of things?
And I guess if you're more interested in, say, legal issues, it would be like advocating the Supreme Court is sacrosanct, and it's taken a long time to treat the court as a truly independent branch of government. The Fed is not independent. It's a creature of Congress. So this isn't an entirely apt analogy, but it would be like futzing with the Supreme Court, which Harris wants to do. What does that imply for stability and rule of law and consistency and application of law? The Fed would be my more immediate concern, but there are parallels.
So to paint with a really broad brush here about the very large macroeconomy, it seems to me that if either of these candidates had their full way on economic policy, then what we would see is continued deficit spending in the 7% range of GDP or more, multi-trillion dollars added to that total federal deficit. And it would come in different formats, but that's kind of what you have to read from the campaign pledges that are being made. On the Donald Trump side of things, there are tax cuts for just about everyone that I can think of,
get in front of,
other than illegal immigrants. But even then, they might somehow still benefit from the tax cuts. On the Kamala Harris side, you have massive new spending plans that are being talked about, and I would call them opaque areas of tax increases that I think are unlikely to go forward, such as a wealth tax on people with more than $100 million in assets. So one area I agree with Chuck on is that it seems to me that should either presidential candidates somehow win both the House and Senate, which we have to talk about that too, because the likelihood of a Kamala Harris sweep on the House, Senate, and White House is incredibly unlikely. But in either event, it does seem to me from a broad economic perspective, there will be winners and losers, but the net result would be trillions more added to the national debt.
Yeah.
And so I agree with Chuck there's not a huge difference.
There have been independent analyses done of this. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget has looked at both candidates' plans. Trump's will add over $7 trillion over 10 years, I think was their time horizon. Harris's will add about $3.5 trillion. So if your
But my
sole
point
criteria,
would be that Harris's would only add $3.5 trillion because it's assuming that she could get her tax increases through, which history says won't happen.
Given what we know today, and if if both candidates had their way with Congress, a huge if ain't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
If your criteria for making a decision is who's worse for the deficit, who's worse for upward pressure on interest rates and probably inflation, the answer is probably Trump. But you may argue that for other reasons, those policies make sense, say national security reasons or whatever. But on a sort of narrow economic scale, deficits and debt and interest rates probably, because more debt means higher interest rates, all else equal, Trump is probably worse. But again, there may be mitigating considerations there that are more important to you as a voter.
So taking a look, Financial Times has a piece out today in terms of, again, we don't know who's going to be the next president, but serious economic issues that they're going to need to tackle, and they list 5 of them, and I have issues with some of the ways that they are phrased here. But the 5 issues: first, the incoming president must find a way to maintain growth while repositioning the economy to take advantage of the drivers of tomorrow's prosperity.
Oh, is that all?
Oh,
thanks.
So basically the job of the president. Second challenge is to come to grips with high budget deficits and rapidly rising debt. Come to grips is the term that I struggle with because I don't know what come to grips means. I guess just acknowledge that it's a problem.
Recognize the limitations that result.
Third,
your hands are tied. Sorry, Mike.
Third, candidates would need to resist the excessive use of the economic tools they favor. For Harris, this means avoiding overregulation and blunt industrial policy. For Trump, it means containing the use of tariffs and tax cuts. I would actually agree there. I think both of them have some extreme economic policies that have not done many people favors. And then fourth, the new administration needs to restore credibility of American leadership at the center of the global economic and financial order. Good luck. Final issue is proper communication. Okay. I don't know how to rank or prioritize these, but I will tell you that one of them that I took the biggest issue with, this second challenge, is to come to grips with high budget deficits and rapidly rising debt. I have one prediction for you, which is regardless of who our next president is, they are not going to come to grips with the reality of high budget deficits and rapidly rising debts and recognize what I believe to be the real threat of all of that to the U.S. economic system.
You know why? This hit me recently. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about it. You and I are the only two. There may be some listeners because this is a audience concerned with matters financial, but nobody cares. If they cared, the political parties would realign accordingly.
Yeah. Nobody does seem to care about this issue right now. And frankly, recent evidence is in favor of that view, that you shouldn't care.
It's going to take a massive, sustained, persistent rise in rates to put it on people's radar, just like it's going to take a sustained change in climate to put global warming on people's radar and really commit to solutions.
But
same thing in my view.
It is, like I said, I don't think it's actually reality that any candidate over the next 4 years is going to address deficits as a real threat to this economy. Quick break. Taking a look at markets with Wall Street Watch coming up next.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Congress is poised to pass a bill to keep AM radio in cars, but time is running out. 82 million Americans risk losing the news, sports, talk, traffic, and vital emergency information they rely on. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to pass this bill now.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
Last year, we introduced you to Marc Vaughter, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Marc is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I'm a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans, Department of Massachusetts. The DAV does incredible work, and it was one of the first organizations I became familiar with after my military service ended in 1984. As I built my company, Veterans Development Corporation, I did it knowing that I'd be giving back to fellow vets who need jobs, support services, medical supplies, and much more. I work with disabled veterans every day, and is one of the key reasons why I'm such a big supporter of Dan Stack and the Disabled American Veterans, Department of Massachusetts, in this year's DAV 5K Boston. Please join me in supporting this tremendous cause by taking part in this year's event or by making a donation to the DAV.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke, a partner with the law firm of Cushing & Dolan, with their master's in taxation. And today we're talking about the implications of gifting assets away. Todd, if you're trying to protect your assets from the cost of long-term care expenses, what are the risks in giving your assets to a child rather than transferring them to an irrevocable trust?
Yeah, it's a very big difference, right? These irrevocable trusts that we do for Medicaid purposes, first and foremost, are incomplete gifts. So you're not actually making a gift at all when you put it into these trusts. But if you give it to a child, now you've made a completed gift. So, for example, if I gave away my house, and people do it, right? You are giving away the built-in gain in that house. You now don't have any control over the house. You can't sell it and buy another one if you want to move. You need the kids' permission for all of that. Plus, if you never sell it and you die, you've trapped the built-in gain for the kids. When they go to sell it, they're going to have to pay capital gains tax. Whereas if you keep it, you can control it, get a step-up in basis for the kids when they die, and still protect it from the nursing home through the trust. Either way, it's going to take 5 years. But gifting isn't always the answer.
Educate yourself about the implications of gifting your assets away. Request your free copy of Todd's brand new guide called Making the Most of Gifting Assets right now by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request a copy on their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Time now for Wall Street Watch, a complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Well, markets are well into positive territory as all eyes are obviously on the outcome of the presidential election today. Right now, the Dow is up by 300 points, or about 0.75%. S&P 500 is also up about 0.75%, or 44 points. The Nasdaq up nearly 1% higher, 165 points. Russell 2000 is up nearly 0.2%. 10-year Treasury yield up by 4 basis points at 4.35%, and crude oil is up just over 1% higher today, trading at $72.23 a barrel. Shares in Trump Media and Technology jumping by 14%, where the stock has been trading in volatile fashion and has been a proxy of election expectations over the past several weeks. Meanwhile, Boeing down by 1% after the playmaker ratified a new labor deal last night, ending a weeks-long strike and clearing the way for factories to resume production. Machinists voted 59% in favor of the new deal, which included 38% wage increases over 4 years for workers. Elsewhere, shares in cybersecurity company Palantir jumping by 20% after the company posted strong third-quarter results, beating earnings and revenue expectations. The company cited unrelenting AI demand and a 30% jump in revenue from the year ago. Burger King parent company Restaurant Brands International missed third-quarter earnings and revenue forecasts, sending that stock down by over 1.5%. Wynn Resorts also missed third-quarter earnings and revenue estimates, sending that stock down by 8%. And Dollar Tree announced CEO Rick Dreiling had stepped down from his role due to health issues. The discount retailer also reiterated its third-quarter guidance. That stock today is flat. I'm Tucker Silva, and that's Wall Street Watch. And want to tell you folks that the phone lines are open for the auction for the Ultimate Boston Sports Auction to benefit the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The bid line for this auction is 888-205-2263. And we have 4 incredible items to bid on, and all the proceeds will benefit the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The high bidder between now and Friday at 11:45 a.m. will take home all 4 of these items. 2 tickets to see the Patriots play the LA Rams on November 17th, which includes a pregame visit to the field and a Drake May autographed team jersey. 2 tickets to see the Celtics play the undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers, at least as of today, on November 19th. 2 tickets to see the Bruins play the Edmonton Oilers on January 7th. And finally, 4 tickets to see the Red Sox next season, in addition to Pedro Martinez autographed baseball. Again, that's all of that will be one giant giveaway, the Ultimate Boston Sports Auction. The current bid for this is $2,500, and if you'd like to increase that amount and take home all of these prizes, call the bid line right now at 888-205-2263. Again, that number is 888-205-2263, and this is to benefit the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. 888-205-2263.
Mark, at the moment, equity markets broadly up, as Tucker mentioned, and unlikely to hear any significant election results data by the time they close today at 4 p.m., and then we'll start looking at aftermarket trading activity, which, can be quite volatile on election nights, depending on where this thing goes and what types of turns it takes. But I'm interested in another question instead, which is, let's look at a slightly longer term time period of from election day through the end of the year, because there was a piece out today about how markets have performed during this relatively narrow window. And big surprise, markets have historically gone up between election day and the end of the year. My question, whenever we get a piece like this predicting or telling you how markets have done during previous cycles, I always have to call them out as, I'm not sure this is relevant or not. So my question for the general public, or for you, Mark, was, I would imagine that markets because of things that we talk about frequently, like the Santa Claus rally, usually go up between November and December anyway. And so is there any significance to it being an election year and markets going up historically, or is this just, hey, markets usually go up between November 6th and December 31st because that's what markets do?
There is an end-of-year effect. There are a lot of calendar effects in finance. You've heard sell in May, then go away.
Sure.
That's because from the 40s through the 70s, the pattern of returns was unfavorable during the spring, late spring, and early summer. There's a more durable, by durable I mean it hasn't gone away, the sell in May, gone away, and then go away adage would not have worked well for you in, say, like the 90s to the present. But the end of year effect, the November effect, December effect specifically, has persisted. So if you go back roughly 100 years, and this data comes from a firm called Morningstar. You may have heard of them. They're a respected third party in finance. They provide data.
If you've ever looked at any mutual fund ever, they usually advertise their
You've probably seen the
Morningstar
name.
rating.
Yeah, they're like the good housekeeping of investments. They're regarded as a good objective referee.
Like it.
They also provide, I didn't come up with that, but thank you. They also provide data for those of us who subscribe. And from 1926 to present, through the end of last year, because we haven't completed a November-December pair here yet this year. And this is using their Morningstar's large cap index, which is like the S&P 500. It basically moves perfectly with it. The average return for November is 1.6%. The average return for December is 1.6%. You can sort that by, did an election happen?
Mm-hmm.
Is it an even year? So Congress or the presidency,
sure.
or did it not happen? And to cut to the chase here, returns in non-election years are about half the average for returns in election years. Moreover, returns when Congress is up for re-election, so every 2 years, are the highest of any month. And congressional elections include presidential election years.
Sure.
Obviously, 4 is a multiple of 2. You can't avoid that. But it's and the difference, and I don't need to get into all the differences because at some point the numbers just become mind-numbing. But there is this interesting effect of stocks returning more in November, December than any other 2 months of the year, and stocks returning even more than that every other year, even years specifically. So there's something to
the actual
but I wouldn't
argument.
attribute it. You can't tease out using the approach I used here, which is very simple. You can't tease out the effect of elections, and you kind of have to ask, well, what was happening? Was there a war on? Were big tax cuts being promised? Was there going to be a blue wave or a red wave? There are lots of other, obviously, variables that you can think about when doing this type of, quote, analysis. But yeah, there's something to it, Mike.
I'd also say, this piece from the New York Times today has data looking at the S&P over the last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 presidential administrations. And I'll just spout them off here to see if you can find any trend or decide what to do with all of this. First Clinton presidency, up 70% on the S&P 500. Next Clinton presidency, up 101%. Bush administration, down 21%. Second Bush, down 11. Obama, up 42. Obama, up 50. Trump, up 57. Biden, up 70. Even if you take a longer-term look at this, I know we've talked about this one before as well, Mark, but there's many, I think, listening who probably would have a bias towards, hey, economy and markets should perform better under a Republican administration, under a Democrat administration. And I'm here to say that I just don't think it has much of an impact in the way that you think it does, and it has much more to do with the timing of the business cycles. Did President Bush's policies on lower taxes or passing of TARP, for example, cause the Great Recession and sell-off that we saw there, or the beginning, the end stage of the dot-com bubble? I would argue probably not, but he happened to be president during both of them. And so, yeah, you have this, trend where a Republican was at the helm for some of the worst market performance in history. Go back further. Did Herbert Hoover cause the Great Depression? Probably not. I mean, maybe he passed something that had to do with it, but...
Well, he'd only been in office for several months.
And he ended up residing over, again, one of the worst market performances in history. And so you might take a look at that and say, well, with those two, I'm sure the Republican averages are quite terrible for how the markets have performed. But you have to ask yourself, is this really a cause and effect, or is it just coincidence, and we don't have enough data to really tell anything.
In some cases, the direction of policy advocated by a president with a different agenda, the Kennedy agenda, get the economy moving again. Reagan approached the economy with a sort of similar set of policy prescriptions, lower taxes, while keeping spending the same or increasing it. That probably made a difference. Kennedy tax cuts were stimulative. That effect didn't kick in until after he was assassinated, sadly. Reagan's took a couple of years. Everybody remembers the depths of the 81-82 recession. Reagan was not popular. Right. Had the election happened then, his butt would have been booted out of there. As you say, Mike, it's all about timing. It's also about policy to some extent. Either way, though, it takes fiscal policy a long time to make its way through Congress and then get enacted. Monetary policy acts much more quickly.
Much faster. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, a little bit of talk on taxes. Very likely to change come 2026, if not sooner. Which direction might they go? That's next here on the Financial Exchange.
Text us 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Last year, we introduced you to Marc Vaughter, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Marc is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I'm a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans, Department of Massachusetts. The DAV does incredible work, and it was one of the first organizations I became familiar with after my military service ended in 1984. As I built my company, Veterans Development Corporation, I did it knowing that I'd be giving back to fellow vets who need jobs, support services, medical supplies, and much more. I work with disabled veterans every day and is one of the key reasons why I'm such a big supporter of Dan Stack and the Disabled American Veterans, Department of Massachusetts, in this year's DAV 5K Boston. Please join me in supporting this tremendous cause by taking part in this year's event or by making a donation to the DAV.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
Securing your family's financial future is one of the most important elements of estate planning. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide is called Making the Most of Gifting Assets. It seems like an easy decision to simply leave everything to your children, but some gifts can cause major complications. Call 866-848-5699 and request your guide today. It'll help you understand the pros and cons of leaving assets to your children. Gifting can be beneficial. However, if the gift is a significant asset, like your primary home, and your kids suddenly decide to sell it, that gift could create massive capital gains tax problems. Whether you're deep into the planning process or just starting out, this new guide contains the information you'll need to make the right decisions for your overall plan. Get your guide today by calling 866-848-5699 or request it online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Isn't it time for you to fall naturally in rhythm with America's Caribbean paradise? The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, and they're the perfect spot for your next incredible vacation. Whether it's the rich history of St. Croix, the pristine beaches of St. Thomas, or the peace and tranquility of St. John, the U.S. Virgin Islands has everything you need to enjoy a spectacular holiday. Go to visitusvi.com and check out the American Caribbean, where you'll find all the information you'll need to book a trip that you will never forget. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport required and no money to exchange. Make it a romantic getaway or a week-long family vacation. The friendly folks of the USVI are waiting to welcome you with open arms. So get out of the cold and head to America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com and book your trip of a lifetime today. That's visitusvi.com.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death. especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bench you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
Now's your chance to support the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts by bidding in our ultimate Boston sports auction. You could win 2 tickets to see the Patriots take on the LA Rams on November 17th, 2 tickets to see the world champion Celtics against the Cleveland Cavaliers on Tuesday, November 19th, 2 tickets to see the Bruins against the Edmonton Oilers on Tuesday, January 7th, and 4 tickets to a 2025 Red Sox home game. All that plus autographed merch from all 4 teams. Bidding ends this Friday, so call now. 888-205-2263. That's 888-205-2263.
So, Mark, we started the first 45 minutes of the show with stuff that we seemingly don't know. Don't know who's going to be the next president. Don't know how the stock market's likely to perform, although it's usually up in November and December. And I don't really know what the policies are going to look like out of that next president and whether or not they'll have the controlling votes in the House and Senate to be able to pass that policy.
Other than that, you're home for the latest.
I have
markets and elections.
One thing that I am fairly confident about, though. I think taxes are going to change over the next 4 years.
Maybe, unless there's
gridlock. I feel pretty well, even if there's gridlock, though. So let's assume that there's total gridlock in Washington over the next 4 years.
God
because, willing. Well, one likely outcome there would be the Senate's polling at like 90% likelihood for Republicans, and the White House is a toss-up. So you get a Harris presidency combined with a Senate that's Republican. You got some gridlock. So I would be fairly confident to say that I think tax rates are probably going to shift around in 2026, not only because it's been a massive campaign promise, but you have the existing tax laws that were passed under the first Trump presidency in 2017 that automatically sunset on January 1st of 2026. So I want to start there because what it means for a bunch of Americans is that most of them, they will see their tax rates increase. All of the rates will go up in those brackets. At the low end from 12 to 15%, on the high end from, I think, 37 to nearly 40%.
I would think that they would take action, even if the Congress and the presidency are held by different parties. They would take action to ensure that the vast majority of Americans' tax rates don't go up.
I think so, too. I think
they can agree on that much.
They can seemingly agree that, hey, that doesn't move.
Yeah.
So, if you're making $100,000 anywhere in the country, maybe your tax rates don't change. But if you're making
I think they'll find common ground on some
$100 million,
of it.
maybe they do change. But in any case, I think that's likely to happen. And again, with so much uncertainty out there, what I've been hearing from people and what I've been hearing from executives that we cover on the show is that they're seeing consumers with a whole bunch of paralysis. I just don't want to make a decision. I don't want to, whatever analogy you want to make, rock the apple cart. I don't want to change anything right now because I want to get through this election and see what happens before I make a change.
What a great excuse for procrastinating.
It is a pretty good one.
Oh, it's this election.
It is a pretty good excuse for
I can't do
procrastination.
anything until I find out.
I mean, silly things too.
Break.
Like I saw the CEO of a mattress company saying that people are putting off mattress purchases.
Oh, yeah, sure they are. Yeah, it's not your crappy product.
Not sure that makes a ton of sense.
No, people aren't drowning in your waterbeds or anything. It's election anxiety.
But
give me a break, Mike.
The point that I would make again is there's a lot of stuff that's uncertain right now, and I don't know what the markets will do.
When is that not the case?
It's always the case.
Right.
But there's some stuff around taxes that you do have a fair bit of certainty on. You do have a genuine amount of certainty around how much you're going to be able to put into your 401k, what your tax rates are going to look like today versus a decade from now, and what you can actually do today to position yourself better. And again, some of this stuff is really unknowable. No, I don't know what your personal tax rate is going to be in 2026. But there are some general guidelines that we can operate by to try and position things better for the future. And while I get the procrastination argument, if it's playing out that way this year and you're giving up one of the last few years of a lower tax rate under the Trump tax cuts prior to 2026 by not doing anything because you've got your head stuck in the sand, that could be a mistake. That's all I'm going to say about it, is that could be a mistake. If you have questions along those lines and you do feel you've been procrastinating when it comes to your retirement plan and your tax scenarios, please give the folks at Armstrong Advisory Group a call. We focus on this type of planning, that individual planning for the future with our clients every single day. And we'd be happy to provide you a free consultation as well. You can call our offices at 800-393-4001. We've got local offices close to you. We can sit down in person and review your strategy. And that phone number, again, for the Armstrong Advisory Group is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Mark, I'm not entirely sure what to do with this piece of data, but I did find it fascinating. Homeowners, home sellers, and home buyers today are older than they have ever been. The typical age of home sellers, according to the National Association of Realtors, is up to age 63. That's up from 60 just a year ago. That's a pretty extreme divergence, but not hugely surprising. One that did shock me. Buyers this year, age 56, that's up from age 49 last year. A 7-year jump in the average age of home buyers out there. I just find these data points to be absolutely fascinating. The average new first-time home buyer, I think, is in their late 30s now. Again, all speaks to the lack of affordability, and really you're only seeing transactions out there for folks without mortgages or with an incredible amount of home equity. And I don't think that this causes any big changes to the real estate market, but I think it's rather just a symptom of this incredibly unaffordable market that we are seeing right now. And
put a rail in your bathroom; it might sell faster, I guess.
Yeah.
Make sure everything's accessible.
Yeah,
if you
really.
Want to appeal to older. I'm being a little bit flip, but.
No, I mean, the average buyer at 56 years old, you do need, if you're selling a home.
We're going downhill fast.
There is a lot, really, the only buyer out there seems to be that one with a lot of cash and not needing a mortgage at this point in time. So hopefully this starts to shift back to norms as we see more inventory coming on the market, because I don't think it's really a healthy symptom that the average buyer is as old as it is, but nonetheless, that's where we are. Let's take a quick break, but a lot more to cover in the second hour of the Financial Exchange, including big news over on the West Coast from Boeing. That's up next on the Financial Exchange.
Legacy planning is incredibly important. Cushing & Dolan's new guide is called Making the Most of Gifting Assets. In it, you'll learn that some gifts to your children can be problematic, especially if there are financial difficulties or a divorce proceeding. Get your guide today by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or request the guide online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
The Financial Exchange and Veterans Development Corporation are proud partners of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for single veterans and for those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit davma.org. That's davma.org.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up.
Because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
Are you retired like me and you just found out you owe the IRS a ton of money? Well, what would your life be like if they took your retirement savings away from you? They can do it and your property. If you owe the IRS back taxes or you haven't filed in a while, the Tax Relief Line is here to help you. They can stop the IRS from taking your retirement savings. If you qualify, you could have your tax bill reduced to zero. That's right. If you're retired and you owe the IRS a lot in back taxes, you could have your entire tax bill reduced to zero due. The IRS has now hired thousands of new employees, so they're ready to come after you. Don't let them take your retirement savings or property. Make this free call now.
800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. That's 800-251-2153.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM. Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group. We have a guide this month. It's titled The Top Year-End Financial Tips. Mike, one of the things that everyone likes to talk about at the end of the year is gifting. And when we talk about making gifts of, financial assets and money, there are some rules that you have to be aware of.
There are, yeah. There's some limitations in terms of how much you can gift in a certain year without facing certain tax filing requirements. I think the biggest one, though, we're heading into election season, obviously. We're going to have a new president one way or the other and potential changes to things like estate tax rules. And so gifting is probably front and center for a lot of folks out there. Under the current setup, the estate tax limitations are basically going to be cut in half should changes not be made. And so if you're looking at gifting strategies, that is one of those that does need to get done by December 31st, and we've got a lot of information on it in this month's guide.
Another one that needs to be addressed by the end of the year, tax loss harvesting in after-tax investment accounts.
Yeah, something that gets looked at and we talk about fairly frequently, but again, a December 31st end date here. And so if you are looking at tax strategies for how you can potentially reduce your bill that you owe the IRS at the end of the day, it can be a successful one. It's just one of many things that people look at towards this time of year. But once again, doesn't do you any good if you wait until January 2nd to get this stuff done. And so if you're looking at those items, this guide's for you.
Our guide this month is titled The Top Year-End Financial Tips, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. Again, it's the Top Year-End Financial Tips, and that number to call is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Isn't it time for you to fall naturally in rhythm with America's Caribbean paradise? The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, and they're the perfect spot for your next incredible vacation. Whether it's the rich history of St. Croix, the pristine beaches of St. Thomas, or the peace and tranquility of St. John, the U.S. Virgin Islands has everything you need to enjoy a spectacular holiday. Go to visitusvi.com and check out the American Caribbean, where you'll find all the information you'll need to book a trip that you will never forget. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport required and no money to exchange. Make it a romantic getaway or a week-long family vacation. The friendly folks of the USVI are waiting to welcome you with open arms. So get out of the cold and head to America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com and book your trip of a lifetime today. That's visitusvi.com.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Last year, we introduced you to Marc Fandetti, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Marc is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I'm a proud member of a military family, including my father Victor and my brother Timmy. Serving my country was one of the greatest achievements of my life, and it's why I choose to give back to this special community. My father built Veterans Development Corporation, and I am honored to continue his legacy of working to help many disabled veterans and their families. It also gives me great pleasure to once again be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K Boston. I hope that by sharing my story, many other disabled veterans will be able to reach their goals once they conclude their service.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Marc Fandetti.
Happy Tuesday. Good morning. Welcome back to the Financial Exchange on Election Day. We've got equity markets broadly in positive territory. Dow up 290.7%. S&P up 44, closing in on 0.8%. And the NASDAQ up almost a full percentage point, 174 points. The smaller size Russell 2000, by that I mean smaller cap companies, up about 0.8% as well. Yield on the 10-year Treasury up slightly to nearly 4.36% in early trading here. And price of a barrel of oil up another 90 cents, 1.25%, sitting at $72 per barrel on that West Texas crude. Don't usually quote crypto prices, but given the attention the cryptocurrency markets and Bitcoin specifically has gotten from candidate Donald Trump, I'll mention that Bitcoin also up 3.25% in early trading so far today. We'll come back to polling data and just where things stand. Again, we won't have, fortunately, any significant results coming out during the broadcast of today's Financial Exchange, but obviously full coverage for you tomorrow. One election that we did get data on, though, last night was out in Seattle, which was the Boeing union vote. Mark, you wanted to say something. You go ahead.
Yeah, Trump just declared victory, Mike.
At 11:07. Mark the tape. Okay. Boeing union votes to end their strike. This is the third consecutive vote on a labor deal from the Boeing Machinists Union. 33,000 workers have been on strike now for, I think, what has been nearly 8 weeks, and finally clearing the way for Boeing to restart their factories. As you can imagine, with a manufacturing process as complex as airplanes, not going to happen overnight. It's assumed that it's going to take a few weeks to restart things, but finally getting this thing done by a margin of, I think, 59% voting in favor of the 26,000 members cast votes. 59% voted in favor of that new deal, Mark.
Yeah, this halted production of the 737 MAX. So gave the Grim Reaper a little break there for 8 weeks, but he can get back to work as soon as that sucker's back up in the air, I guess.
God.
Sorry, I had nothing substantive, Mike.
No, it's a good joke.
A little goofy election day.
As part of this deal, workers will see a 38% wage increase over the life of this 4-year deal for those 33,000 machinists. Separately, Kelly Ortberg, the new CEO over there, is cutting 17,000 jobs, raising more than $24 billion in equity in order to keep the company just afloat. They will also be getting a $12,000 ratification bonus and a pledge to build their next plane in the Pacific Northwest. That promise to me is completely irrelevant because this deal is a 4-year deal and they are not going to be building any new planes anywhere in the next 4 years, but I guess is a indication of where they intend to keep focusing their investment. The final piece on this deal did not come with any sort of commitment on reinstating pensions, which were killed back in 2014, if I am not mistaken. Increased 401k contributions as part of this, but not going to be looking at any sort of pension contribution or retake on that pension. And really what I think drove this deal home was the leadership at the union finally turning and saying, this might be the best we're going to get out of Boeing, so line up and come vote.
8% a year before the increased 401k. I think it's a match. There may be some profit sharing in there, which would actually be encouraging. Align incentives, increase your profit share. I wonder how telling it is that they didn't budge on pension.
It's also interesting because if you were going to have to restart a pension plan and start funding it again, not the worst time over the last couple decades to go do so. You've got rates in a pretty solid place. You can, go out and buy a 10-year treasury at, what did I just say one was going for? 4.3% yield. Compared to where you were in 2014 when they canceled this thing, you don't have to fund it quite as much as you previously needed to.
That can, of course, change.
Of course.
And their balance sheet is in rickety enough shape as it is. 401k doesn't go on it. Pension liabilities do. It's understandable.
Not
obviously.
That most workers get this choice, Mark, but
no.
How do you evaluate? Like when you look back at, whether the Boeing workers would have been better served by their pension or their 401k. Let's look at this case specifically. Over the last 10 years, you look at Boeing, and we don't know the specifics off the top of our head of 401k contributions versus pension guarantees. But
yeah, I don't.
What's how do you evaluate what's actually better for that person? Because being invested in a 401k over the last decade, been pretty darn good for you.
Yeah.
Pretty darn good
I'd say it depends on the individual and how risk averse they are.
Sure.
Like you're taking the chance that at your retirement date, you will or won't have enough when you annuitize. Most people don't actually buy an annuity, but the right way to think about it is annuitization.
Yeah.
What could I get from an insurance company? If I gave them my $500,000 401k as a lump sum,
right.
What would they pay me a month for the rest of my life? What would they pay my wife if she survives me? And is there inflation? There are little levers you can pull there that affect the premium, the cost up front of the annuity. So I think it depends on how risk averse or risk accepting
tolerant
you are. Thank you. Better way to put it. You are, because you're right. It's been a spectacular. There's been a spectacular advantage lately for equities. There have been other periods though when the security of a pension looked really good.
Yeah, the pitfalls for the 401k are pretty obvious. You screw up investing because you don't know what you're doing. You don't fund it enough because it's your choice. The markets don't perform the way you want. The ones with pensions, they're a little bit less obvious, but the risks exist, right? I mean, generally with a pension, you're not getting a cost of living adjustment like Social Security. Most pensions don't offer that. So hasn't really been a problem for the last 5 decades, but imagine that you retire with a pension and we see higher than average inflation for your retirement. That could be, that could put you in a bad situation.
Absolutely.
There's the obvious risk of the company that offers the pension going belly up, but even there you have the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation, which steps in to
a point,
ensure to a point that you're still paid something, albeit usually not the full benefit of your pension. But it is, I think on the balance for most people, I would say the pension is the better, it is ultimately,
as you say, not that you have a choice.
Not that you
can't
have a
opt
choice.
into one or the other, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, very few people are looking at jobs out there and saying, oh, well, this one offers a pension and this one doesn't, and so that's how I'm going to base my decision. No, most of us are either in a career that offers a pension, which is maybe 20% of us, and then even that high? No, probably not. 5 or 10%
Well, unions
of
are
us.
less than 10 of the private sector workforce, 10%,
Yep.
and not
And then-
everybody in a union has a traditional defined benefit, which is a fancy way of referring to a pension plan.
Public sector workforce, almost
Totally
everybody has them,
different,
but
yeah.
yeah, it's tough to say exactly what portion are covered by a pension these days. But yeah, it's just an interesting thought exercise. If you were given the option to choose one versus the other, how you would do so. And one area we actually might see that choice coming into play is insurance companies starting to play a bigger role in 401k plans, right? You've seen it too.
They've tried over the last 10 to 20 years to give participants, this is what we're called in 401k world, participants instead of account owners, but you can use them synonymously, to give them the opportunity to pensionize your distribution by buying an annuity within the plan.
Yeah.
It was an iffy area for so-called plan sponsors for a while. It's more accepted now, i.e. less.
Still don't see a lot of it, but it is one of those areas where, hey, you actually might be able to choose whether you want a pension or
so few people are choosing it that the innovation has been slow.
Yes.
Because it's not a popular option. And you could do it yourself. You can roll over to an IRA, right, and annuitize.
Yeah, you hypothetically could do so. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, going to have a bit of trivia for you coming up, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the upcoming election today, or the ongoing election today, and what the most recent polling data seems to be saying. Quick break. That's next on the Financial Exchange.
Tune in for Trivia, brought to you by Applebee's. Every day at 11:20 for your chance to win cool prizes. Text us at 617-362-1385 and use keyword Applebee's. Complete rules are available at financialexchangeshow.com. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Isn't it time for you to fall naturally in rhythm with America's Caribbean paradise? The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, and they're the perfect spot for your next incredible vacation. Whether it's the rich history of St. Croix, the pristine beaches of St. Thomas, or the peace and tranquility of St. John, the U.S. Virgin Islands has everything you need to enjoy a spectacular holiday. Go to visitusvi.com and check out the American Caribbean, where you'll find all the information you'll need to book a trip that you will never forget. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport required and no money to exchange. Make it a romantic getaway or a week-long family vacation. The friendly folks of the USVI are waiting to welcome you with open arms. So get out of the cold and head to America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com and book your trip of a lifetime today. That's visitusvi.com.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Fine-tuning your financial strategy as the year comes to a close is very important. So this month, we're sharing what we believe are the most critical year-end financial tips. As 2024 winds down, there are several opportunities for you to consider that may help you end this year without worrying about your overall planning strategy, such as contributing the maximum amount of money to your IRA or 401k plan, offsetting your capital gains, and maximizing your charitable giving. We'll walk you through these issues and more in our new free guide called the Top Year-End Financial Tips. Get yours today by calling 800-393-4001. Again, it's the Top Year-End Planning Tips from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and you can request it by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Securing your family's financial future is one of the most important elements of estate planning. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide is called Making the Most of Gifting Assets. It seems like an easy decision to simply leave everything to your children, but some gifts can cause major complications. Call 866-848-5699 and request your guide today. It'll help you understand the pros and cons of leaving assets to your children. Gifting can be beneficial. However, if the gift is a significant asset, like your primary home, and your kids suddenly decide to sell it, that gift could create massive capital gains tax problems. Whether you're deep into the planning process or just starting out, this new guide contains the information you'll need to make the right decisions for your overall plan. Get your guide today by calling 866-848-5699 or request it online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Last year, we introduced you to Marc Vaughter, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Marc is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I joined the Marine Corps when I was 18 and served proudly from 1981 to 1984. As CEO of Veterans Development Corporation, my goal is to give back to the veteran community, many of whom are employees of this company. This is one of the reasons I am so excited to be partnering with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts on this year's DAV 5K Boston. The DAV works tirelessly to support many of our disabled veterans and provide them access to critical services that help them live comfortably every day. I hope to be part of many more success stories of our vets being able to achieve their goals and dreams when their service ends.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
The ultimate Boston sports auction to benefit the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts is underway. You could win 2 tickets to see the Patriots take on the LA Rams on November 17th, 2 tickets to see the world champion Celtics against the Cleveland Cavaliers on Tuesday, November 19th, 2 tickets to see the Bruins against the Edmonton Oilers on Tuesday, January 7th, and 4 tickets to a 2025 Red Sox home game. All that plus autographed merch from all 4 teams. To place your bid, call 888-205-2263. That's 888-205-2263.
Trivia brought to you by Applebee's. Take your friends or family to any area Applebee's and enjoy half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m., including boneless wings, spinach and artichoke dip, and warm pretzels dipped in beer cheese. And don't forget to join Club Applebee's to enjoy exclusive deals and specials. You'll get a free appetizer just for signing up. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood, void where prohibited, dine in only. Last day of presidential trivia here on the Financial Exchange. 4 U.S. presidents have been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. 3 of those presidents were in office when they won the award, Jimmy Carter being the exception, as he won it 20 years after he left office. Trivia question today: who was the first president to win the Nobel Peace Prize? Once again, who was the first president to win the Nobel Peace Prize? Be the 5th person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer. You can win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt and be registered to win a $100 gift card to Applebee's. Be sure to include the keyword Applebee's in your text, and we'll give away that Applebee's gift card on Friday's show. 617-362-1385, and the 5th correct response will be our winner. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Well, it is Election Day in America, and as such, we kind of want to talk about statistics. And it's particularly interesting with polling because unlike the statistics that we review here on the Financial Exchange, you ultimately get an answer on how close your measurements were, and you get an answer pretty darn quickly. Like, we eventually do too. Eventually they do a census and we get some answers to certain questions about the state of the labor market or this, that, or the other, but it often takes years before that data actually comes in. Here, we've had polling going on for the last, 2 years on presidential politics, and we should know late tonight, tomorrow, Thursday at the latest. According to the most polls, which is just kind of crazy. They seem incredibly close. According to one source, 538, which has a model where they take averages of different polls, weight them differently depending on historical accuracy. They have run simulations that show basically a coin toss. They ran 1,000 different simulations for the Electoral College. 503 of those 1,000 came out in favor of Harris. 495 of them came out in favor of Trump. 2 of them came out with no Electoral College winner, in which case it would be tossed, I believe, to the House, in which case Trump would likely win in that scenario. But incredibly close. Now, there has been some criticism of that closeness. Some claiming that, hey, maybe statistically it's somewhat improbable for the race to be as close as it is right now, and there could be a number of different reasons behind that. But can we talk about that statistical improbability and why some people are suspect of this data, Mark?
The problem at its core is that of getting a random sample. We talk about the unemployment rate every month, the number of new jobs created. For example, last month, it was a disappointing, probably weather-related, but a disappointing, nevertheless, 12,000. That comes from a sample of employers, and that sample has an error because we don't know the real number. We don't go out and ask everybody, much like in these polls. So all samples, all estimates that come from a sample have an error. That's why they say plus or minus 2 or 3 percentage points. And that's why they use the phrase statistically tied, because the difference is as big or bigger than the gap between the two. So when you say a poll has a margin of error, plus or minus 3, if it's candidate X at 47, candidate Y at 49, the margin of error is bigger than the difference between the two. So statistically, they are the same. The issue is getting the right size sample that's addressed in the margin of error that we always hear a lot about. That's easy enough to do if you have the resources. Tougher thing to do is getting a random sample. We don't think about this a lot. But if you went, for example, into a church, I used this in the last hour, I'll use it again, and asked people, are you pro-life or you pro-choice? Pretty much everybody's going to raise their hand. I wouldn't, just to be a jerk. But pretty much everybody's going to raise their hand and say, I'm pro-life. You can't do a abortion poll in a church. That sample's biased. You can't poll just people on, say, cell phones or on social media about who they like for president. That sample would be biased towards, say, younger people or wealthier people who can afford the mechanism you're using to gather the data. So in addition to the size of the sample, there's randomness issues. And this is what Silver, I think, is getting in part at. Some pollsters are looking at their sample and saying, it wasn't really random in the last 2 election cycles. We missed a bunch of
in 2016, that was the big one. They missed a whole bunch of Trump supporters because they missed, I think the general conclusion there is that they misdefined the pool of likely voters. They did not capture those people that typically weren't voting in elections and presidential politics. They didn't usually register. They didn't, even if they were registered, they didn't usually show up. They didn't show up at the last midterm. And so they said that person favors Trump, but they might not show up. And this time around, the accusations seem to go on the other way, which is pollsters, again, according to some of the accusations, seem so concerned about being wrong that they're just calling it a coin toss.
You might wonder, how can he come to that conclusion? He didn't ask every pollster how they conducted their poll. He didn't dig into every pollster's methodology.
I did not.
And the answer, no, not you, Silver, in this example.
Yeah.
No, we most certainly did not. What a waste of time. We most certainly did not. The answer is they don't vary as much as random chance would suggest. If I flipped a coin, I said this in the last hour, I'll use the analogy again. I'm just trying to generalize here and take something away from this. If I flipped a coin 10 times and it came up heads 10 times, you wouldn't have to have seen me do it. You wouldn't need to inspect the coin. You wouldn't need to know any of the other variables. You would say on its face, that's suspicious. Chance, the mathematics of a coin flip tell me it's going to be 50-50. And in a big enough sample, 10 times isn't a good example. If I did it 1,000 times and it came up 90% heads, you'd say that coin's loaded. I don't have to inspect the coin. I don't have to look at you. I don't have to know anything about the process. That's what Silver's doing here. He's saying these polls are suspiciously well aligned.
Yep.
There should be more divergence, and there isn't.
So again, conclude what you will about that. This does indicate even with some sampling bias and herding, that this seems to be a pretty close race. That does not mean that the results will be close, by the way. You could have a blowout in the popular vote. You could have a blowout in the Electoral College. You could have Trump win all 7 swing states. You could have all sorts of things happen that don't get really properly defined in polling data like this. Just because polling data indicates a close race, I will repeat this again, does not mean that you will get a close result. It just means that they're having a tough time predicting what the outcome will be.
Yeah, well put.
So I think that's where I would leave it in terms of good and bad uses of reading up on polls. Obviously, betting markets quite different. We talked about that at the beginning of the show as well. But betting markets strongly favoring a Donald Trump outcome in the high 50% range. Again, I don't really know what to do about that. And by the way, betting markets haven't been reliably correct. Betting markets were heavily favoring Clinton in 2016 because that seemed like the obvious outcome, and they were all wrong. So I wouldn't say they're any better than polls at predicting outcomes.
Mike, they're not. That's not unbiased. Excuse me. Sample. These are people who are inclined to go online. They're inclined to gamble. They've got some bucks. They're more likely to be men, said differently, than women. So on its face, you can almost reject that approach in a statistical sense. It's not a random sample.
Let's take a quick break, but when we come back, we are going to have the trivia winner for you. And then we'll talk a little bit about just the overall state of the labor market. We've got our Boeing workers back to work, but what does the rest of the market look like as we head into the next presidential cycle?
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Isn't it time for you to fall naturally in rhythm with America's Caribbean paradise? The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, and they're the perfect spot for your next incredible vacation. Whether it's the rich history of St. Croix, the pristine beaches of St. Thomas, or the peace and tranquility of St. John, the U.S. Virgin Islands has everything you need to enjoy a spectacular holiday. Go to visitusvi.com and check out the American Caribbean, where you'll find all the information you'll need to book a trip that you will never forget. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport required and no money to exchange. Make it a romantic getaway or a week-long family vacation. The friendly folks of the USVI are waiting to welcome you with open arms. So get out of the cold and head to America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com and book your trip of a lifetime today. That's visitusvi.com.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death, especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bench you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, Call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke, a partner with the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with a master's in taxation. And today we're talking about the implications of gifting assets away. Todd, since the estate tax laws are projected to change on January 1st of 2026, significantly reducing the estate tax exemption, does it make sense to gift away assets right now?
You know, it's a big question mark. You have to think of a few things. One, look at the size of your estate. If the exemption falls to $7 million each and you're married, you can still die with $14 million of assets and not have an estate tax. So gifting might not be important from a federal gift tax situation. But the state exemption is only $2 million, so you can only shelter $4 million. So you might want to gift to reduce your state estate tax. However, there's basis to consider. If you give away low basis assets, you're trapping capital gain. And to do that, you might be paying more in capital gains taxes later when the kids sell the assets than you're saving in just Massachusetts estate tax. So you really got to think about whether it makes sense to gift or not. And if you're going to gift, you should probably set up a gifting trust. People might be gifting large assets away and not gift the assets directly to a child. Have them in a trust for the child's benefit and then protect those assets for them.
Educate yourself about the implications of gifting your assets away. Request your free copy of Todd's brand new guide called Making the Most of Gifting Assets right now by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request a copy from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Now's your chance to support the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts by bidding in our ultimate Boston sports auction. You could win 2 tickets to see the Patriots take on the LA Rams on November 17th, 2 tickets to see the world champion Celtics against the Cleveland Cavaliers on Tuesday, November 19th, 2 tickets to see the Bruins against the Edmonton Oilers on Tuesday, January 7th, and 4 tickets to a 2025 Red Sox home game. All that plus autographed merch from all 4 teams. Bidding ends this Friday, so call now. 888-205-2263. That's 888-205-2263.
Trivia question today was, who was the first president to win the Nobel Peace Prize? That'll be Teddy Roosevelt. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1906 for his role in mediating the Russo-Japanese War. Winner today of the Financial Exchange Show t-shirt was Chad from Haverhill, Mass. And Chad's also registered to win a $100 gift card to Applebee's, which we'll give away on Friday's show. And trivia is brought to you by Applebee's. Enjoy half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m. And join Club Applebee's to enjoy exclusive deals and specials. You'll get a free appetizer just for signing up. Now, that's eating good in the neighborhood. Void where prohibited. Dine in only.
Mark, whoever is next president is going to be inheriting a labor market that, whatever you want to say about it, is distinctly weaker than it was 18 months ago. I think we can all agree there.
Or more normal. I don't know which.
Yeah, I mean, however you want to describe it, it's not as tight as it was 18 months ago. If that's normalization, if that's weakness,
that's fair.
Whatever you want to call it. But, you know, it's always easier to compare something to something else than describe it. If you were to look at only, and I know you hate doing this, but if I were to look at one data point that you think best sums up the state of the labor market and like evaluate it over the last 18 months, what do you think is easiest to look at?
The unemployment rate.
I was going to go there too. Right?
Just go with the old standby.
The old standby, I think, is actually doing a pretty good job of summarizing what's been happening with the labor market over the last 18 months. And let's go ahead, and I didn't have this pulled up, but I will pull up the unemployment rate over the last couple of years to just help people understand where we are right now and what it might indicate about where we're going. So obviously, April of 2020, when we read the unemployment rate, it wasn't looking so good. Came in at 14.8%. I don't know the last time we got that high. We might not have ever gotten that high.
Mid-1930s.
Probably, yeah. by, late 2022 and early 2023, we were getting to crazy low rates of unemployment. So when I take a look at this, I think the low that I saw in 2023, April of 2023, we hit a 3.4% unemployment rate. That is also pretty unheard of. We have very few instances where things have gotten that low.
Yeah, lowest since the 1960s. Only incidents prior to that. This data set only goes back to 1947. You're looking at it was in the 1940s.
Slowly over the course of about a year, you saw that start ticking up, and by July of this year, we got to 4.3%. It's now ticked back down. We're sitting at 4.1%, but I think that does a pretty good job if I'm just looking at like a 5-year trend of explaining where we've come and gone. We were in late 2019 at a really low rate of unemployment rate again, back in the mid-3s. We shot up to 15. We got back down to the mid-3s, and now we're back in this kind of normalization period. And it just begs a question that I don't have an answer to is, does that trend continue? And I'm talking about the longer 1-year trend of rising unemployment, slowing job gains, or have we met some temporary equilibrium here? Because, again, like we talked about, in spite of the slowing job gains, last couple of months has been defined by lower unemployment.
Yeah, and just take it at face value. It's low relative to its historical average. The average by decade kind of goes, I'll go through this very quickly, Mike. You gave a lot of data.
Sure.
I think this is the only way to interpret the number. The average in the 1950s, which was quite go-go economically speaking. It was a frenetic growth decade. 4.5% was the average then. 4.8% was the average in the 1960s. It then went up slowly, as we all know, in the 70s until the late 80s when it started to come down. In the 90s, which we all remember quite fondly, the average unemployment rate was 5.8%. So much higher than it is today in the 2010s, 6.2% because of the aftermath of the Great Recession and so forth. So no matter how you slice it, in historical terms, for what it is worth, the unemployment rate is very low. I'll tell you a second statistical, if you like, fact about unemployment. Changes in unemployment are persistent.
I didn't say whether or not I'd like.
I'm not giving you the choice.
I would like, so go for it.
Changes in unemployment are persistent. It's got momentum, if you like. When it starts to go up, it continues to go up. This is why the Fed cut by 0.5 percentage point when it last met 6 weeks ago, and it's likely to cut again in a couple of days. They know that unemployment changes are persistent. They're worried about more labor market slackening and what that might bode for the economy. Not something good, if our historical experience is any guide.
Bringing it back to presidential politics, is this a tough economy to inherit, or is it theirs to screw up?
I don't know, Mike. We won't know until after the fact. You could make the case that things are, and you did kind of make this case, things might be deteriorating, not the word you used, my choice of...
It's good interpretation, though.
Yeah. So things might be deteriorating. We don't know, or they may have just normalized and plateaued. I don't really buy the plateau explanation because the change in unemployment never really sits still. But economic growth is healthy.
Legacy planning is incredibly important, but if it isn't done properly, you can create significant problems for your estate. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law, and their new guide out this month is called Making the Most of Gifting Assets. In it, you'll learn that while some gifts to your children can be beneficial, others may not be, especially if there are financial difficulties or divorce proceeding. Learn how to protect yourself and your family by calling Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and ask for their brand new guide called Making the Most of Gifting Assets. It contains a wealth of information about the gifting process, including important details about what tax issues may arise from a major gift like a home or a vacation property, and what happens to the asset if the child has creditor issues. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Piece from the Boston Globe today. Housing construction around Boston has been sluggish. Here's why that could change soon. They then go on for 3-4 pages here to describe a bunch of things, but the only real argument that I could find in this entire piece as to why Boston home construction would pick up again would be lower interest rates. And I'm not saying that won't be a factor, but if the only thing that you can look at to say that housing construction is going to pick up is lower interest rates, then don't hold your breath. We had this same type of article published 6 months ago when the Fed was about to cut rates, or no, not 6 months ago, 6 weeks ago when they were about to cut rates.
Feels like 6 months.
What's happened with mortgage rates since the Fed did so?
Ooh, I know.
What you got?
They've gone up, Mike.
Substantially.
Thank you.
Substantially, they've gone up. And so, look, I hope that rates come down. I think it'll lead to more housing activity. It would be nice. I feel for the first-time home buyers out there who can't buy a home. But if all we're going to say about housing is, hey, hopefully interest rates come down so builders can start building again, I don't know that we're going to get the outcome we're looking for.
Can we expand on that point about rates going up? Because we talked about this internally this morning at Armstrong Advisory Group, or at least I did. People politely listened and probably played with their smartphones.
So far as you know, yeah. That's what I was going to say.
But it's really unusual for longer-term rates to go up after the Fed cuts rates.
Right.
The average response, and by longer-term rates, I'll just arbitrarily say anything longer than, say, 5 years, using the U.S. Treasury bill or bond, if you want to go out even further, as a reference point. Normally, when the Fed cuts short-term interest rates, long-term interest rates kind of follow suit. At least in the very short term, the immediate reaction is consistent across the so-called yield curve. But over the past several weeks, the Fed, as we all know, lowered its short-term interest rate target, the only tool that it really controls in an almost direct sense. In point of fact, it targets rates. It doesn't control them, but let's just pretend it controls them. Normally, longer-term bond rates follow suit. They haven't this time. We all know this. Interest rates on the 10-year and up in terms of the Treasury bond long end of the curve have gone up by over 0.5%. Mortgage rates, which are tied to longer-term Treasury rates, have followed suit. This has never happened before to the extent that it's happened this time around. Normally, longer-term rates and thus mortgage rates fall after the Fed cuts. Sometimes they've gone up by a little bit, but the incidents are very few and far between. You can count them on fewer than 5 fingers. Mm-hmm. But in this case, they've gone up by a lot. This cycle, if you like, so far, the behavior of long-term interest rates during this cycle has been unusual.
Weird. Yeah.
Weird.
So hopefully maybe it'll flip back. Maybe it won't. Maybe we're in a different cycle. Maybe it means something else. Maybe the Fed is going to need to reverse course because of what bond markets are reading in terms of rates going up. So,
like we talked about earlier, this is why the election will have consequences if the outcome is decisive and, say, uniform across the branches of government.
Let's take a quick break here on the Financial Exchange. When we come back, a little bit of stack roulette.
Text us 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show, and let us know what you think about the stories we're covering. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
With the year coming to a close, now's the perfect time to address some important financial considerations as you begin to think about your plans for 2025. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and our new guide is called the Top Year-End Planning Tips. In it, we discuss the significance of several concepts that are all crucial to your overall planning. Topics such as family gifting, tax loss harvesting, and properly calculating your required minimum distributions. Understanding these, among others, may help you with certain decisions you're considering as we head into 2025. Call the Armstrong Advisory Group at 800-393-4001 and get your free guide today. Let us help you finish 2024 without worrying about your financial strategy while setting you up for a positive start in the new year. That number again is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Securing your family's financial future is one of the most important elements of estate planning. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide is called Making the Most of Gifting Assets. It seems like an easy decision to simply leave everything to your children, but some gifts can cause major complications. Call 866-848-5699 and request your guide today. It'll help you understand the pros and cons of leaving assets to your children. Gifting can be beneficial. However, if the gift is a significant asset, like your primary home, and your kids suddenly decide to sell it, that gift could create massive capital gains tax problems. Whether you're deep into the planning process or just starting out, this new guide contains the information you'll need to make the right decisions for your overall plan. Get your guide today by calling 866-848-5699 or request it online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Isn't it time for you to fall naturally in rhythm with America's Caribbean paradise? The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, and they're the perfect spot for your next incredible vacation. Whether it's the rich history of St. Croix, the pristine beaches of St. Thomas, or the peace and tranquility of St. John, the U.S. Virgin Islands has everything you need to enjoy a spectacular holiday. Go to visitusvi.com and check out the American Caribbean, where you'll find all the information you'll need to book a trip that you will never forget. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport required and no money to exchange. Make it a romantic getaway or a week-long family vacation. The friendly folks of the USVI are waiting to welcome you with open arms. So get out of the cold and head to America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com and book your trip of a lifetime today. That's visitusvi.com.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
The ultimate Boston sports auction to benefit the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts is underway. You could win 2 tickets to see the Patriots take on the LA Rams on November 17th, 2 tickets to see the world champion Celtics against the Cleveland Cavaliers on Tuesday, November 19th, 2 tickets to see the Bruins against the Edmonton Oilers on Tuesday, January 7th, and 4 tickets to a 2025 Red Sox home game. All that plus autographed merch from all 4 teams. To place your bid, call 888-205-2263. That's 888-205-2263.
That's right. The ultimate Boston sports auction to benefit the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts is officially now open. The bid line for this is 888-205-2263. We have 4 incredible items to bid on, and all the proceeds will benefit the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The high bidder between now and Friday will take home all 4 of these items, which are a pair of tickets to see the Patriots play the Rams on November 17th, as well as a autographed team jersey of Drake May, 2 tickets to see the Celtics play the undefeated Cavaliers on November 19th, 2 tickets to see the Bruins play the Edmonton Oilers coming up on January 7th, and finally 4 tickets to see a 2025 Red Sox home game, in addition to a Pedro Martinez autographed baseball. The current high bid for all of these prizes is $2,500, and if you'd like to increase that amount and take home these 4 incredible auction items, call the bid line right now, 888-205-2263. All proceeds will benefit the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Now's your chance to support our great American heroes. Call now to bid at 888-205-2263. The auction is open through this Friday at 11:45. Again, bid line 888-205-2263.
Well, Mark, it's finally happened. Artificial intelligence has come for my job too, and I guess just hang up the skates and retire at this stage. But according to a recent poll by Experian, 67% of Gen Zers and 62% of surveyed millennials are using artificial intelligence to help with personal finance tasks. This changes obviously by generation, but quite frankly, people of a certain age are using artificial intelligence for darn near everything, and I'm not there myself, but I do frequently use it for especially general search tasks in terms of returning information to me. I would say that financial advice and investment advice fall into this same category of there have been several threats of change to that entire area for decades, and I think some of those threats have been positive on the industry, such as more transparency and lower fees. Others haven't really made much of a dent, right? Remember a decade and a half ago when robo-advising was going to change the universe of the investing world? Can you point to anything that's significantly changed on that front?
I think people who make that claim don't know what a financial advisor does.
Yeah.
Which is, if I had to sum it up, Mike, it's provide peace of mind. Sometimes you're a psychologist. Sometimes you're a numbers guy. Sometimes you're a family counselor. In my experience and from watching you and others here at Armstrong Advisory Group, anybody can allocate their assets among so-called asset classes, major investment ingredients. Heck, target date funds and 401k plans do that for you. And you can put it on autopilot. You don't have to look at it in theory until you retire. That's one approach anyway.
So I did test it this morning, just like kind of curious. And I do think, ChatGPT or any other artificial intelligence tool can probably help you solve some basic questions. Like, hey, give me 5 steps to help improve my credit score based on what I have going on.
Number 1, get off your computer and get to work.
Give me some tips about how to budget properly, and maybe there'll be some useful stuff in there. When I asked it more complex questions like, hey, I've got this company stock within my retirement plan. What am I going to do about it? It lacked some of that nuance that you might need in order to take action. And so fortunately for those in professionals like financial advice and investment management, I don't think this is on the cusp of replacing you yet. What do you have for us?
Isn't there always a judgment call there? Well, okay, we can talk about that at any time. So a reminder over the last 4 years that what irks people more, we know this, but what irks people more than anything, Mike, is inflation. Because if you take that out of the picture, the incumbent party's economic record looks really strong compared to the previous party's economic record. So if you look at Trump versus Biden, unemployment went up under Trump. It's come down under Biden. I am not, by the way, making a value judgment here. I'm just giving you the numbers as reported by the Federal Reserve, which takes it from various statistical agencies as reported by the federal government. GDP per capita under Trump up about 6.6%. Under Biden, this is after inflation. Under Biden, up 9.3%. Manufacturing jobs under Trump, negative 180K. Under Biden, plus 680K. So huge differences in what an economist might think at first blush are the most meaningful series. Then you look at inflation. Inflation up 20% cumulatively under Biden versus 7% under Trump. And that's why we are where we are today. People hate it more than they like economic growth and other, on the surface anyway, measures of economic activity and labor market health. This should be a lesson to the Fed and to policymakers. Inflation above all. Get it under control. Keep it under control.
I have a personal story related to one of the pieces that we're covering for Stack Roulette here about retailers offering returnless refunds. All that means is the cost for them to accept the return is more than just giving you a refund on it. I ordered some. My wife really ordered them from Wayfair, some pretty heavy coffee tables for our living room when we were decorating a few years ago. And 2 of these things came chipped. Called them. One of them wasn't so bad, and it was not really the centerpiece for the room. So we said, and they told us, hey, would you like us to return it and send you a new one, or do you just want a discount on it? We'll send you 30%. And we said, on that one, we'll take the 30%, but on the other one, it's pretty bad. I'd like you to, send us a new one. He said, okay, sounds good. Dispose of it yourself, where you'll have a new one at your door in a few days. That was an interesting way of doing it to me. I mean, again, speaks to the fact that it's expensive to return these things, but specifically the order in which he offered those things was particularly interesting because, hey, I'm not going to tell you that I'll take this thing back and offer you a full refund, but first I'm going to go with the 30% discount and see what happens. So buyer beware out there. You can work the system a little bit. Markets remain open and strongly in positive territory, now with the S&P up over 1%. We'll have a full election and market recap for you tomorrow, folks. Have a great rest of your afternoon.